Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming back to my channel. This is going to show you how I make the chili and cheese for my little hot dogs. I made a couple little tiny nail-sized ones for Feisty Diamond on Instagram. There was a request to see tiny itty bitty ones, and they're done the same way as I do my other hot dogs, just tinier. So this gives you an idea. There's a little mustard dog and ketchup dog. So that's what they look like. They're done the same way. Here is the chili cheese dog again. Let's see if that will focus. So it has a little bit of the red onion. There's chili. It's a ground beef chili rather than being a beanie kind of chili. And there is cheese with little bits of melted cheese. So we'll get started. Now, I use Primo polymer clay, and I actually created a written tutorial that I'll provide a link to in the description box. I put this in my blog before I actually brought a tutorial onto YouTube for it. So if you want to see sneak peeks of what type of tutorials are coming up, I'm going to be doing written versions first and then filming. So I created the buns first this time, and then I put the hot dogs in it. So this was baked alone, and then after adding the hot dog, it was baked again. That's one of the nice things about Primo, is it could be rebaked and rebaked and rebaked. I'm not sure about the other clays, as I use primarily Primo and Primo mixed with Sculpey. Fimo is pretty strong and resilient, and so is some of the other ones made for modeling. Just I know that Sculpey tends to be a bit brittle. So we're going to make our chili. We have two piles here. We have 2 piles of Fimo liquid decorating gel, so I just pour them out on the table. You could also use the translucent liquid Sculpey, but just know that you're going to have to test bake some to make sure it's the right color before you want to start putting them on all of your little hot dogs. I'm going to be using spiced pumpkin, luster dust, and I'm using aubergine petal dust. This is from Global Sugar Arts, and they said they also have a spiced pumpkin color. This is, I don't know if it's pronounced Linnaeus or Linneas. Global Sugar Arts does ship internationally, I believe, where it was a lot harder for me to get a hold of the Linnaeus. It's sold at a local candy shop, but I haven't seen it any other places in my area. So Global Sugar Arts is where I've started getting a lot of my stuff. And my chili is going to be, I'm going to put a little bit on the outside here. It's an awful lot. And then I'm going to put some out here. I won't need as much of that. And I want a lot of the orange and some of the aubergine until it's nice and rich and dark. And I just add more orange and more aubergine to my taste. And I'm making it a little darker than I would think I would need, because Fimo Deco Gel is pretty thin and very translucent. So for instance, if I want syrups a little bit darker, I tend to I tend to make them a little bit richer than the color I actually want. Then I dab the chili on. I'm going to start using the needle for this, the needle side of my pen. So hold on a sec. Get a fresh pen here. Bring it close up. And this is going to be covered with cheese as well. but you definitely want dark richness in there. But I find that as the Fimo Deco gel kind of sets, that it will thin, and you'll see a lot of the color almost looking like it disappears off of the top of the hot dog because it's just thin, which is why I add a little more color than you would think you would need. Now I want this to be a beefy chili rather than a beanie chili. So for my meat, I'm using burnt umber primo, and I go in circles like how I texture the cake, but I do it a little bit more aggressively, and I take chunks out and I add them to my hot dog. So I place them on top, and I place them along the sides. So it takes a little bit of time. Now if you want to go with just a chili dog without cheese on it, I would put a little bit of the Fimo Deco gel on top of the ground beef. But if you have cheese on top, I let it be on top. So all of the texture there is the little meat that I added on top. And I added on top so there's a little bit more color to the chili, so it's not just the liquid color, but the burnt umber color adds a little bit more depth. So after that's done, I go ahead and bake this. Let me put the lids on here. I'll just scoot them aside for now. Okay, so here I have orange and yellow mixed together from Primo till you get the shade of orange yellow that you like. And I did a slightly lighter and a slightly darker, and I rolled them out super thin on the pasta roller. The thickness, I think, doesn't matter so much as how thin you chop your lines. So what I do is take very thin strips like this, and then I take little lengths for my cheese, but do this on the table. Sometimes I show you guys on my finger just so you could see a little better, because these are really tiny and the table's pretty far away. So that's how we make the cheese. But I also make a cheese color. I'm using Chef Master Yellow. I picked this up at like a Cook and Stuff a long time ago, and it's just primary food colors. But really what you want to do is just make sure that you like the color. I thought this has enough yellow and enough orange in it that would be nice for a cheese, but because of how clear the Fimo Deco gel is, I wasn't wanting it to be translucent, so I added a touch of white to make it a little bit more opaque. So it's not much, just a tiny bit of white. But that really does make a difference between it being see-through and not. So let me bring some of that out here. And stir it in until it's all nice and mixed. Okay, so there we go. Now, adding the cheese, I actually put in a tiny bit of clear Deco gel, and I wet just a couple spots to help the wet clay stick to the dry clay. And since it cooks clear, you don't have to worry if it stands up on top or not. If you get a little glob, it's not going to be very visible with it all being covered by the cheese. So from here, I pick up my cheese and I just start placing it. And if you do really thin strips, you can bend the cheese so that way it's not just straight little pieces, but you could have some curled. And I take more thin strips and chop them up and add them as I want. Now, what I do is once I put as much cheese on as I want, I will add little bits of the wet cheese color that we just created with the deco gel to just kind of help it look like the cheese is melting into the chili, like the chili was nice and hot. Now, I personally like a lot more cheese, but this is just to show you what I do without making this too terribly long, not wrong. Okay, so I have one finished here. I did add a few little red onions, and I did that right before cooking, and that was done just the way I did on the relish dog. So that was in my other tutorial. I want to show you how I glaze this. I want to use a gloss glaze, and I'm going to use a very fine tipped paintbrush and dip just the tip of it in. And I try to get all of the little parts of chili, so that's what I start with. Make the chili look nice and wet. And then I try to make the cheese that's melted nice and wet, so wherever you added the tiny, tiny bits of melted yellow cheese. And then I like to get the purple area of the red onions. So obviously it's just really light. Now from here, I dip my paintbrush and I run it on the paper a little bit so I have glaze on it, but it's not going to be left in bubbles. And something I like to do with hot dogs that are boiled, so unless you make it grilled, I add just tiny little drops, and then I sometimes will even go over it with a dry brush for more of a satin glaze kind of look, because you don't want it to look glossy, but you want to have a little bit of a sheen to it. If it has too much, you could use a finger to pick up part of it. But if you have a really tiny brush or even a needle, you could pick up tiny, tiny bits and put tiny droplets on and spread those tiny droplets, and that will also give the same effect. So there we go. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I will be conditioning clay to do some more stuff soon. I want to do the green tea ones. I want to do Kiki and Lala. And I want to do some Valentine's Day stuff coming up. That's the plan. So thank you all for coming back once again, and you guys are just amazing. I just can't believe how wonderful all of you guys are. When I come and read comments, I just think that I have like the best fans ever, that you guys are just so kind and supportive. So thank you all so very, very much, and I'll be back with more tutorials soon. I'll do a business tutorial as soon as, well, not really a business tutorial, but one of my business Etsy videos as soon as I finish my marketing research. I've done marketing research on about 140 or 150 shops so far, and I think I'm like right about halfway done. It just takes a long time because I have to go through each shop's sales in order to do it. I'm going to show you guys how to do it, and I haven't done it in a long time, so it gives us a good idea of where the actual current market is on Etsy for miniature food. So that way, once I'm done, I'll be able to tell you how many miniature food items are being sold on Etsy a month, roughly. And then I'm also going to be able to tell you about how much that is per shop average. And I could tell you how many stores there are currently. For the most part, I'll show you how I do that. But it's very informative, and it will open your eyes to actually show you what the true market is, and so you have more realistic expectations. And so that way also you see that you may be doing far better than you think, right about where you think you should be, once you hear the numbers. It makes a lot more sense. So take care, guys. Till next time. Bye.